You say it take a village to raise a child, but what if the village is retarded?
What's going on today? What is going on today? I don't expect too many people to be up. This is late. This is just something that I just kind of wanted to do earlier, but time is of the essence, as they say. So time is now. We might as well get right into it. So I decided to kind of tie this whole Shador Sanders and Deion Sanders and the NFL saga into this 3M system. Okay. Basically, if you don't know what the 3Ms is, it's mindset, money management, and momentum. Okay. Momentum is the last part in the 3M system. Okay. You can be born into momentum. Okay. Pretty much that's what Shador Sanders was blessed to be a part of. He was born into a situation where his dad, Deion Sanders, was basically a rich NFL star. He, basically never had to worry about certain things that a lot of people had to deal with, such as I'll just, say it. Most people, a lot of people that I grew up with, a lot of my peers had similar storylines, some worse than others, but it kind of goes like this. It's the whole struggle, right? Lights being cut off, uh, you know, gas being cut off, water being cut off, just basically utilities. Every utility you could think of or imagine being at one particular time or another cut off. Before the internet, it was no VoIP, right? It was no cell phones. You had to have a telephone. You had a old fashioned telephone line, and it used to be expensive. I remember the phone being cut off because my mother would talk on the phone a lot, and if my mother wasn't talking on the phone, my sisters was talking on the phone, and the phone bill was just through the roof, right? AT&T or whatever it was called back then, that it used to be cut off. Okay. Uh those things, food, not being able to eat the food that you really want to eat. Some people had situations where they didn't have food. I've never been in a situation where I didn't have food, fortunately. But I remember not being able to eat the food that I really wanted to eat. Okay, just imagine, right? All of these things, your parents telling you don't pick up the phone because it's a bill collector. What else? Not really being able to wear the clothes you really want to wear, or having to have a budget when you go shopping for clothes. Not really being able to really go to the college that you really want to go to because college is expensive. Okay, not living in certain neighborhoods that you want to live into. I could go on. I could just make a list a mile long and just go on about, basically the average, uh you know basically black person that grew up from the time from the 80s all the way to the 90s and onward. A lot of these struggles, a lot of these stories are very similar, to a lot of people in the black community, or what if you want to say, a lot of black people that grew up in that time frame. Well, there is a small percentage of individuals that have never had that struggle, and it is a very, very small percentage. I would say very much, I would say about a 1 percentile of individuals, black individuals primarily, that did not have that problem. Okay. um, basically people that were of the upper class. Okay, and I'm not talking about $100,000 like upper class. I'm talking about millions and millions of dollars, $1 million upper class. And that's the story of basically Shadur Sanders. Okay. Uh Basically being blessed with a situation where he is shares generational wealth from his father. Okay. And then his father taking his talents and skill sets, teaching his son, coaching his son in his NCAA career, starting from an HBCU, basically bringing his star appeal to Jackson, Mississippi, Jackson State University, bringing the fanfare with them, taking that talent to basically a PWI institution, University of Colorado, or actually University of Colorado. And basically taking that to the widespread more competitive Division 1 NCAA football league. The rest is history, right? Well, now you see something that is it's a problem with primarily black men when it comes to momentum. Okay. uh you can actually achieve a certain level of success in America and being black, and you're going to have issues even if you have money. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't really understand that to a certain extent, that yeah, you can actually get extremely successful to where you have so much more momentum than the average person. But you got to understand, in America, there's a few things that I notice, and this is something that I really kind of been it's something that I've been aware of for a while, but it's something that I really honed in on. I would say I would say basically this year, I really honed in on the fact that this country is controlled by a few things. One of those things is occultism. Secondarily is religion and racism, and also classism. So those four things you have to deal with regardless of what kind of money you have, what type of success you have financially. One of the things that pretty much Shador Sanders has ran into is the fact that, okay, you do have this money, which is one of the things that people don't understand and really didn't talk about. I've listened to a lot of people talk, and you know, the thing is that how rare a person is actually upper class before they actually go into the NFL. You got to understand, about 99%, 99 point, I would say 99.9% of NCAA athletes that are drafted, and I'm talking about all leagues. I'm talking about every league possible, from baseball, football, basketball. They are, for the most part, if they're lucky, they might have some under. This is like the old way, because this is actually something that's going to be, this is, something new, where in the last few years they have had NIL deals, where actually there are some athletes that are coming into the league, they're already millionaires. Okay. They already are successful. Not all of them, but a small minority of athletes are already coming into the league, already actively are already millionaires. Angel Reese was one of those players. Even Caitlin Clark, she already had endorsements. She was already making money before she signed for the WNBA, which they don't really make that much, but they make a lot of money off of endorsements. Do all of them make that? No, obviously not. But this is a new thing. Now, even let's just say Shador never got any NIL deals. He never got any money. The fact that of alone that his father is was rich and he pretty much grew up with his father for the most part, he's rare than 99.9% of all athletes that actually are drafted into the NFL. Okay. And I can say all sports because most of the NFL players, NBA players, they are drafted based off of a need, okay, for the team, but also the coaches and also the managers and also everyone that is involved in the organization. You got to understand they're looking for a thirst and an actual needy person that is going to do whatever it takes to get to that team, meaning sign for a small amount of money and put their all into trying to, basically play for that team and, feel as though they have no other recourse but to play sports for that team. And they drive off of that hunger, that poor player that is drafted into the NFL. You got to understand they actually have all of the cards. A lot of these organizations, that's how they operate. They operate based off of the fact that they already have, this money and this carrot they dangling over you. And if you are so poor and you're so broke that you are looking at this carrot, that's their advantage over you. And you're talking about a player that does not already um is already a deca millionaire coming into the NFL, already has a certain level of confidence and entitlement. The league chose to actually, embarrassingly, it was very embarrassing for, I would say, the whole country. The whole country was at a gas because um I'm not gonna play any videos or anything like that. I could, but I'm not gonna do that because it's not really the point of to play any videos. It's not necessarily about the actual sport or whatever. The whole point is based off of what I'm saying is, you know, the more money you make, okay, it doesn't matter how much, you still will not be accepted by basically um non-black society. If you have success even with momentum, you got to understand that the society that basically has a lot of the wealth, I'll just say, they still you're still going to have to deal with a lot of different problems and issues, okay? And the thing is that when it comes down to it, they're not used to these types of players coming into the NFL, in the NBA, or any other sport. They're not used to this. This is new. A lot of people don't really know about sports because maybe they're not really into sports or whatever. But the NCAA pretty much had a monopoly on players. Basically, they had all of these rules where players basically could not get any money while they were playing college sports. Okay, it was some players that basically challenged the NCAA years ago. I would say about 5 years ago, and the NCAA had some basically legal challenges that they tried to make, but basically it came to a point where the NCAA had to fold and they had to allow players to be able to make money. Okay, this was like 5 or 6 years ago. Now, historically, to play as a NCAA athlete, you were not allowed to get any money from any endorsements. You were not allowed to get any type of money under the table or anything while you were playing, NCAA sports. Okay, so that was historically how that was. A lot of players had to get money under the table. They had to get money from donors, private donors, in order for them to kind of survive and even thrive, in it, while they were playing college sports, to get the car that they really wanted to get, all of those types of things. They had to get a lot of like basically money under the table in order to be able to play sports, and then even to it was a tool that was used to actually recruit athletes to give them pay their mother some money or their father some money or buy their father a car or whatever, a new house. These were things that was used for purposes of signing athletes and also maintaining athletes, okay, in the NCAA. Okay, fast forward to, I guess, the last, I don't know exactly what year, but this was definitely recent. I would say no more than 5 years. Now players can use endorsements. They can get paid from their collegiate career, their actual collegiate performance. They can get as much endorsements as they want. They can actually get rich while they're in college. Not all of them are doing numbers in college. It's very, very small few. Some of the top stars are getting endorsements. It is creating some type of resentment towards other athletes that are not as popular and not, as skillful as other athletes, because they still are pretty much regular athletes that just basically kind of have to work harder and they don't have the money that other players have. But needless to say, the NFL decided to make an example out of Shador Sanders. It was very, very embarrassing. Whenever you whenever the president of the United States has to say, basically tell these other billionaires and millionaires, what are you doing? This is not good. Okay, why are you doing this? It's messed up, right? And the draft, a lot of people, I'm not gonna call them any names, okay? But they know who they are. They were saying because this guy is too braggadocious and he's too proud and all of this types of stuff. They had to teach him a lesson and all of this stuff. That is all bullshit because you got to understand this is very, very embarrassing. No, you got players that have been playing in the NFL since the 90s. You probably talk to the older players in the 80s. They have never seen this before in their life. You talking players that play in every decade going back to probably the 80s and 70s that are still alive. They have never seen this before. This is very, very new type of behavior where they basically all of the owners colluded to make an example out of basically a teenager, a rich teenager, that's entitled, that just so happened to be a young black male, to make an example out of him. No other player has ever seen this in their entire life. and it's a black eye to the NFL. Now you got the whole world looking at you, and you got people. Nobody can say. I don't want to hear anybody say there's no racism. This is not racism. This was the they were teaching him a lesson because he was this and that and the third. No, no, this was textbook actual. This is actually what racism actually is. This this is the actual real world definition of racism. And the whole thing is you can't deny it. You can't see. You can try to say, you can bounce around it and say it's this and that and the third. No, this is textbook racism at its purest form. And here's the thing, like, I'm gonna say, and I've said this before, and I'm not the only one to say this. You know, I don't I don't understand what it is where non-black people think that they can put the genie back in the bottle, because of some political climate is changed or whatever. There is no genie going back in a bottle. Okay, you're not going to be big Billy Badass because you got a whole bunch of money and you own a company or you own an organization. You're still a weak beta male in the eyes of other women and other people, and it is not going to make you look like you're Billy Badass because you tried to collude to a little teenager with a whole bunch of money. This is actually more embarrassing to the NFL organization, and it is embarrassing to all of the athletes that basically played the game before, past and present, because you have a system designed off of skill set, talent, and actual being number one, and you basically threw all of that in the toilet to just make some type of collusion to teach some rich teenager a lesson. And here's the thing. I know my words will reach, okay, whether it's big or small. I know it's rich people that follow me as well. I know it's rich people that listen to me as well. So I know you're gonna hear this message. But okay, that being said, that's my little spiel on this whole Shador Sanders situation. Um, I'll just say this, okay? This is about basically momentum. This is just a reminder. This is not going to be a long live stream as well. Even if you make all of this money, okay? Even if you make this money, you become a millionaire, multimillionaire, half a millionaire. Don't ever, especially if you're black, don't ever think that your money is going to put you in a position where you're going to arrive somewhere in your actual mind where you've arrived in America, and you won't have to deal with certain problems and issues. I'm gonna be honest with you. As a man that has just slightly improved to the point where I bought houses and cars and stuff like that, you are looked at by other people that are not fortunate, and there people that look like yourself and others that are non-black, and they look at you like, who do you think you are, right? Who are you to have a better car than me? Who are you to dress better than me? Who are you to basically talk better than me and even live better than me? You do have that element when it comes to when you actually have built up some momentum for yourself. And it does not get better. It does not get better the higher up you go. It does not get better. It gets actually worse. And this is why you have people, a lot of black people that do have money, they don't want to live in non-black areas. This is, talked about in the book Dark Ghettos, and the Black Bourgeoisie. I think that's by E. Franklin Frazier. They talked about this, where it's black people that actually have money, they would prefer to live in a lower socioeconomic area, i.e., around other black people that don't have money, because they don't want to deal with all of the backlash when it comes to non-black people and what they do and how they treat you, when you live around them in these nice houses and nice areas, because there is a lot of backlash. People believe because you are black that the money, you don't have enough money to live in that area, you don't belong in that area. It's certain just kind of things that you got to deal with when it comes to perceptions and people's bigotry and all of these types of things, when you get to a certain level, that you have achieved a certain level of momentum. This is not typical, but it's just like I say, this is very relevant to this conversation, because these things are something that a lot of people have to deal with, and they don't really like to talk about it. It's like you go into a store, a high-end store, and people asking you for help. People, the stores associates following you around or paying close attention to you because they think you're gonna steal. All of these types of things, right? And obviously this conversation goes into, okay, well, why don't you create some stores, why don't you support, black businesses and all of these types of things. And I'm the last person that you would want to ask me to talk about that, because I've been talking about that for absolutely on this channel for years. So I've been the man with the fucking bullhorn, talking about, hey, um why don't you start a gas station? Why don't you, instead of buying blunts and all of this types of stuff, from all of these people that, don't live nowhere near you, but have all of these businesses in your neighborhood, why don't you compete? And that's the whole thing where, I have a disagreement with the whole, all of these little letter groups and shit, ADOS and FBA, because it's like, okay, at the end of the day, no matter how proud you are about dancing and you put a flag in front of your Twitter profile and you call yourself FBA, you like Tariq Nasheed or whatever. I don't care. I'm talking about everybody, Pan Africanism or FBA, whatever. If you're not competing financially, you can forget your flag. You can forget your little alphabets in front of your fucking whatever you want to represent, because if you can't compete economically, you can forget about it. Because at the end of the day, however proud you are, you gonna have to go punch the clock with the same people that have the economic power, and you don't have it. you know and this goes into this whole situation too with the NFL. I mean, it's like at the end of the day, there should be some type of, ownership when it comes to black ownership in the NFL. And, you know, at the end of the day, people are talking about certain things that are not important, in my opinion, because it's no reason that there shouldn't be some type of ownership, where you got all of these black people that are millionaires and billionaires but don't own an NFL team. Obviously, that's a fucking problem. Okay. Now, here's the thing. There's actual collusion that is obviously at play when it comes to that. You got to understand there's collusion in trying to get black owners and all of that types of things as well. So that's, I understand that. Now, at the end of the day, you know, that's where my problem with a lot of other people. Everybody's so happy to talk about these little groups that they want to follow and these little internet little clubs and cliques, but at the end of the day, they got to go punch a clock. They're employees. They don't have businesses. They're not self-employed. They're not investors. They're fucking slaves. And at the end of the day, when slaves talk, I ain't trying to listen until you talking about trying to compete. You might as well fucking forget about it. And that's what Dr. Claude Anderson said. Any business person will say, if you don't have any businesses, you could just go fucking forget whatever movement or whatever fucking thing you're trying to start. You can go take a shit on the toilet. Because if you don't have any type of business backing or corporate interest to basically put towards your organization or your whatever you're trying to put into, you can forget about it. Absolutely forget about it. Money, money with no talk without any money is just cheap talk. Okay. That's just how that goes. I mean, it's I didn't make the rules. I'm just saying what the obvious thing is. But yeah, I mean, when it comes to momentum, you have to understand, even with whatever level you achieve, you got to understand it's certain elements that is at play here, internationally and nationally, that does not look at you as a person that they feel like if you got money. And I know you definitely shouldn't worry about what people think of you. Okay, I'll just obviously put that out there. And you shouldn't care as far as how people feel about you as well. Okay, that's obvious. Okay, now I'm just saying, internationally and nationally, you got a lot of people that are unilaterally believe that you should not have any money. They think that you should, basically be on a lower level, and your level of success is, something that people will never accept, and you got to understand that. Th- this capitalistic system, when you research how it started in its origin, whether you're pro-capitalist or not, you got to understand that this was definitely on the blacks of Africans. Okay, capitalism was created on the blacks of Africans, and that means that what I'm saying is, you were not supposed to. It wasn't designed for you to get capital. Okay, and most of the people that understand the origins of capitalism, they know this, and they're not gonna tell you that. But obviously, you can research capitalism and basically, neo-capitalism and classical, or classical economics and neoclassical economics, and understand that the origins of it, basically is, on the blacks of African slaves in America, and that it was never designed entirely for you being the origin or ancestry of those same slaves to get money and to get capital and be able to be, on a higher level, in that capitalistic system. Okay, I just have to state that and put that out there. I've said this before, and when it comes down to it, when you do play the game and you actually do, have some success in it, and I am trying to. This is what this channel was about, for you to actually have some success in this capitalistic system, because you want to live in it. You gotta motherfucking try to be a winner in it. So that's what this channel is about. Now, when it comes down to it, this is just a reminder. Okay, you, in order to, um, you know, have yourself in a situation where you're not frustrated, you don't want to believe that you have ever arrived. Okay, you can think it, but when you go outside, you got to understand that it's people that do not accept your arrival. Now, just because they don't accept your arrival, don't mean a bunch of nothing. But you just gotta understand this is what these people think. This is what they're taught to think, that you will never arrive, that you are a slave, you're an ancestor of a slave, and that's all you will ever be. And I'm just gonna say, you know, that being said, these are things that you gotta basically just kind of understand that these people have this mindset, and don't worry about it. Don't try to um basically give it too much of attention. But you got to understand, it's kind of like a lot of times when it comes to uh a lot of black people that have money, this is something new. Okay, this is something very new. A lot of people, a lot of non-black people are is new to them, and they don't like it, and they don't want to accept it. But that's not your problem, that's their problem. Okay, and that's something that they have to deal with. So that being said, that's all I have to say on this. This is not something I was gonna go long term with. This is just something to just get off my chest. Just just a reminder, and that's that. Okay.
Message.